All right, we are here at my tiny worm bin. And last time we were in here, we put some flowers in here, kind of called it our Hawaii feeding, some plumeria flowers, and they were super fragrant. And we're gonna see if the worms ate those. They were right on the surface, and I put some water in here because it just seemed really dry, so I kind of want to check the moisture too. The top always seems to be a little bit dry, which is fine. So we'll just keep digging. Worms right away. My guess is that those flowers are completely gone, because I am right in the middle here. Now, we have not put any bedding in this in about 21 days because it is very close to being ready to harvest. In fact, the feeding that we're going to give them today is the last feeding that they will receive before it is harvested. And yes, I'm going to find out exactly how many worms we have in here, because we started with what we thought was 50 to 100, and I really think it was closer to the 50 point. And I just want to know how much they populated in the so far 165 days that this bin has been in existence. So I always like to dig all the way into the corners just to see how everything's doing, and I really want to make sure with all that water I put in here. I kind of slipped when I was putting it in, so I put a little bit more than I wanted to, but this looks like a really good moisture. It's nice and still kind of crumbles, but it's also still kind of sticking together. So, and here is, I thought was a piece of plastic, but it's actually probably part of the zucchini that we had put in the last time, because I am right in the feeding zone. Kind of from the from the bottom up this time. But this bin is doing fantastic. Keep looking over here, but those flowers gone, so I am definitely going to start putting my plumeria flowers in here as they kind of fall off the plumeria tree and land in the yard. But this is just great castings, you know, worms throughout, but the castings themselves just look fantastic. And here's some of the worms. All the worms in here are red wigglers, so no mix of blues or anything in here. A little clumping, but again, that's just appears to be the moisture level on the castings. And we're still seeing, you know, individual pieces of cardboard here and there, but nothing like when this bin was first started out, or when I first started putting the cardboard in. And if we get some of this cardboard in our sifting, I'll just put it right back in the start of this bin. And you can also see a little bit of white. That's the office paper that it was originally started with. Again, I'm just kind of going in the corners, making sure nothing's too wet. But for this being started with 50 to 100 worms, it really has exploded in population. It used to be I'd grab a handful and there'd maybe be one worm or no worms, and it just took forever for me to see any sign of castings mixed with the bedding. You know, there'd only be a little bit of castings where there was food, you know, where their food was previously placed. Here's that last part of the banana that I think we saw last time. A big old chunky worm kind of made his home in there. So, okay, I'm pretty satisfied that that last feeding was taken care of, and that those flowers were completely eaten, and that we can use them again. So let's go ahead and set up a feeding zone right here. And this is going to be the last feeding before the harvest of the castings. And again, we're not going to use any bedding, because we want them to kind of forage through the last of this bedding. If they need carbon, they can get it from what's already in here. And the feeding that I'm going to give them is going to be very fast food for them, food that they can eat pretty quickly. And it's just strawberry tops and some of this summer spinach that we grow that is actually able to tolerate the heat. But we'll put that on there, and some of these strawberries, which they go through super quickly. Sometimes all I see is the carrot, or the strawberry top, not the carrot top, the strawberry top left, but I don't even expect to see that, and I'll just kind of put the last of the greens in there. So that's going to be the extent of the feeding, and then I will continue to put the coffee grounds in there for them. Again, another food source that is super finely ground, so it's very easy for them to get to. Also easy for microbes to help break down. And then just put a little bit of grit. This is their last feeding, so do they really need grit at this point? Probably not. Probably enough in there. But that looks like a great last feeding for them. We're going to check on it one more time and see how it's doing, and then probably after that is when we will harvest. So probably 14 days before we start picking out these worms individually and counting them, and then probably put this through a baited kind of harvest before I totally sift it, just to try and get out as many worms as possible, because that's kind of the goal here, is how many worms did this produce when it started with so few. And the size of this bin is just fantastic. Again, you can see it's not that big. One of my shoes could not even fit in here. So if you're in a small space or don't want a bin that's big and cumbersome, and you're not really looking to get a whole lot of castings or continue your population growing and growing, you just kind of want to prevent your food scraps or carbon sources like paper and cardboard from going to the landfill. You have a little bit of a garden or some indoor plants, this is the perfect bin for that. So in fact, I've got 3 bins, and if you subscribe to my channel and look on my playlist, you can see how they're doing, and you can look for actually from start to finish castings. And this is called the tiny bin. I've got a vermi hut and I've got an outdoor worm bin. But I think that's going to do it for this tiny worm bin feeding, and I hope everybody's having a great day, and happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.